You've hit Beltline Construction, brought to you by Calvin College Media Production. Here's your host, Grand Rapids personal trainer, Mighty Joe.
Welcome back to Beltline Construction. I am your host, Mighty Joe Stankowski. Today we're going to talk about one of the 5 movement patterns, which is going to be level changes. We've already done rotation. We've talked a little bit about pushing and pulling, and of course there is bending and anti-bending. Level changes are great because what they do is they make you use 3 different joints, your hip, your knee, and your ankle, all the muscles across those joints. Every time a muscle is moving and working against resistance, it needs energy and it needs oxygen. So this is a good way to expend a lot of energy quickly rather than doing little bicep curls all day long thinking you're going to get leaner and meaner. We could take a big movement like a level change exercise that we're going to do today and get a lot more out of it. So I'm going to call our supermodels in here, Stephanie and Ben, today. They're going to help demonstrate a few concepts. First thing we're going to do is grab a chair. And Stephanie's going to demonstrate what I call a hip hinge. So we're going to do the first thing if you're going to do a squat or lunge is you want to be able to break the hips first. And sitting on a chair is the easiest way to do it. A lot of people have the fault where they bend their knees first like that. If you can do that again, kind of demonstrates so the camera sees. And that's the way to kind of hurt yourself over long term. Much like unbreakable combs, if you bend them back and forth long enough, they break. If you do movement incorrectly long enough, you're going to end up hurting yourself. So what we're going to do is start with a nice hip break and then sit back into it. And that's effectively what a hip hinge is. So if you need to practice at home first, before you get to the gym or before you pull your own weights out, just have a chair behind you as a prop. So we just break the hips again one more time, sit back, and then let your knees follow through with it, and there we go. And what's going to happen when you're doing squats and lunges and things, your spine is going to come away from vertical, which is fine. Don't worry so much about your knees going past your toes. There's a lot of guidelines as far as these go. Your spine and your lower leg are going to be about the same angle. So that's what we're going to look for. So we'll get that out of the way, so please don't sit back. And so what we'll do now is have Ben grab a weight, and we're going to demonstrate a squat with some resistance. So you just kind of hold that however you want. This is a kettlebell. Use dumbbells, use small animals, use whatever you want to do. Just want to have some kind of weight to work with. He's setting up with about a hip to shoulder width stance. He's just going to sit down doing that hip hinge that Stephanie just demonstrated, keeping his spine fairly tall and good. So his head's looking forward. We're going to do about 10 reps or so. We're going to kind of watch this because what you see when you do an exercise is 1 or 2 reps isn't really enough to show you the fatigue and what would happen, kind of the compensations people make. And we're looking pretty good right now. What we can see is that his knees are open up just as far as his toes are. So if he had his toes really splayed out far, he'd have to do effectively a plie. But here we're just, a nice slightly outward angle with his feet. And breathing, which is always good. Oxygen and brain cells go together like chocolate and peanut butter. And what we're doing here is we don't want to breathe really loose. We want to keep all the muscles that protect your spine nice and tall. So even holding your breath on the way down, taking in a breath at the top, hold it, and then as you start to go up, then you could exhale. It's a way to help protect your spine, really. So get a couple more reps here, and we're going to have Stephanie demonstrate a variation of this that we have to look out for. Good. How about one more with my math? Of course, I don't count in a straight line. I know that already. Good job. Great. Okay, so Ben, you can take that weight out of the way. Have Stephanie grab her weight, and we're going to demonstrate something that a lot of people do. So if you can do a squat now too, but I want to have kind of that, what we practice, little fake pattern here. A lot of people do what I call the Bambi knee, where a knee buckles in, either one side or both, and we don't want that. Again, it's a good way to end up hurting yourself either right now or long term. So what we want to do is we want to teach you to stay out. Now what people do if you squat again, a lot of trainers will often do this, and even like well-intentioned training partners will push. But now if I push, her natural resistance is to push back, is going to make her come back in even further this way. So what we could do is do the same squatting movement. We'll just again pretend it's your right leg only that does this. So I'm going to give her resistance if I'm pulling in. It gives her feedback now, so she has to fight to go back out against it. So if you have painful knees or any kind of hip problems and you see that you're buckling in, this is a way to help fight against that. So get a few more reps out of here. And if you don't have me at your gym or in your home to hold band for you, attach one to some sort of a door handle that you might have, or if both knees buckle in, which is pretty common, especially when people find themselves sitting all day long at a desk or in a car, their hips get kind of weak. You can just take a band and loop it around both knees so we have your own resistance against yourself. So you're doing a good job keeping her heels down. Over the last several episodes, you may have even noticed, she had some ankle issues when we first started this show. She had very limited movement. Just by going through some of these simple things, we made a lot of progress in just a few weeks. How about 2 more, and we'll move on. So again, I'm not giving a lot of pull on here, just enough to give her feedback to know that, hey, there's resistance, I have to fight against it. Good job. I'll take that away from you, and we'll move on to deadlifts. So we're going to have Ben come back in here with his weight now, and we're going to start with some deadlifts, which is a lot like a squat. We're going to start with the weight on the floor. And what we're going to do, we're going to have him step up to the weight. He's got his chest up high, his back is tall. He's got a good curve in his lower back, and he's just going to stand up with it. The same rules apply as far as his knees tracking the same direction as his toes. Looking good. We'll get a few of these, and we'll look for some flaws we may be able to focus on here and teach you something at home. too much of a fine-tuned machine. He's got nothing wrong here. Now, what makes a deadlift and a squat? Well, it's really where we're starting with the weights. I mean, we're starting from a dead stop. He doesn't get to load on the way down to kind of get that eccentric sort of, bounce, to stretch and return. So we're starting from a dead stop. A couple ways we can make this exercise different. We could do what's called a sumo stance, which is almost a modified sumo right now, but a sumo stance would be a much wider stance with his feet out wider, toes pointed out more, and the weight grabbed in the middle, versus a conventional stance, which would be a narrower grip with the hands outside. And you have to have a barbell for that one typically. But here we're looking pretty good. And sumo tends to put more emphasis on the glutes, and the conventional tends to go more on the spinal directors. Of course, all muscles are working at all times anyway in this one, so it's hard to really avoid group of muscles on this. Maybe 2 or 3 more reps with this, and we'll move on to lunges. Good job. All right, so you can step back out of that one. Again, have Stephanie do the lunges now, and we don't even need to wait for this one to start. So I just want you to come straight forward. And now, so this is a lunge. So she starts here, and if she steps back, that is a lunge. Now we're going to do this very similar movement. We're going to call it a split squat. So have you put your foot forward, and it's going to stay there. So now we're not going to do the stepping forward and back. We're just going to lower yourself down, stand back up. And what you might be able to see from the camera is her spine and her lower leg go pretty much the same angle. And that's what we're looking for. So if she comes down forward and starts to lean really hard over, if she's trying to keep herself really upright and her knee goes forward, the movement tends to feel a little painful, a little awkward, a little, just, I guess disturbed you could call it. Good. Want to push that front heel through the floor. Again, these are all level changes. Lots of ways to do these. We can do step-ups on a bench or on stairs. Running, walking could also be considered a level change because all 3 of these joints are going through these ranges of motion that we're doing. Because we're trying to get a bigger workout of these, of course, we want to have some resistance. This is where weight comes in. You can use barbells, dumbbells, again, small kids maybe, whatever you have around the house. Now in this, what we're doing too, we're getting all of our repetitions on one side before we switch over to the other leg, which we're going to do now. So switch the other side. Good. And really, this is just to make it a little bit easier for you doing exercise, so you don't have to think about the coordination of going left leg, right leg, left leg, right leg. You get to focus on one side, really get a good plant, and put some emphasis on one leg before it fatigues, and then you have a chance to do the other leg and keep on working. Doing a good job. About 3 or 4 more, and we'll have Ben come in here and we're going to demonstrate a side lunge. So we've got 3 planes of motion to work with, so there's no reason to stick just in this one where you're going forward all the time. About last rep right there. Now, Ben, let's give this one a try. If you step back, what I want to do is I want to step towards me, but you're going to stay facing forward. And so we're just doing a side lunge now. So if for some reason you have bad knees or bad hips and it hurts when you do these forward lunges, a great thing to try is going in a different plane of motion. So try these side lunges. And how far you go is going to be dictated by what doesn't hurt. So a prom date guideline comes to help us again. Painless range of motion, demonstrating a suitable technique. So if you can even step out a little further, you can try that this one because your hip's coming past. So what I see is I want to see your shoulder over your hip, over your knee, over your foot. And that looks great right there. We add an element of resistance by using more weight or by having speed. Looking good. And if balance is really a big issue, we want to get the fullest range of motion we can here. So, we don't want to sacrifice range of motion for weight or vice versa, but we do want to get the fullest range of motion we can when doing a resistance training exercise. So if you need some extra balance, either holding onto a chair or using some sort of like a pole or something like that that might be handy, or grabbing the back of a couch, that will work too. Good, and let's take it to the other side. So same thing here again. Now if you see from the side, I don't know if you can tell from the side angle over there, again, his shin and his back going the same kind of angles right there from the side as he's lowering down. So he's not trying to fight to keep himself up really hard and have his knee go forward. And if your knee goes a little past your toes, if you have long limb lengths, you might have to do that. I know we're getting close to the end of the show, though. We're going to get a few more reps out of Ben here before we go back to Stephanie. So just keep on training like you mean it, because that's this is what's all about here at Beltline Construction, is getting stuff done. Great to have the information, even better to use the information. Keep training, keep trying, train like you mean it. We'll see you next time. Let's get a few more reps. Good job.